Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the show. Yet another episode of Crushing Fantasy Football. I am Bryce Lockridge, your host of the show. All right, guys, today I have a list here of players that are going to break out in the second half. Now, guys that have already broken out, like Kenneth Walker, they're not going to be on this list because they've already broken out. So my job is to predict what's going to happen, not talk about obvious things that have already happened. So, these players are kind of trending in the right direction. So I think they're going to have a huge second half, and I'm going to be talking to you about every single player and why I have them going off and being a league-winning player in the second half of the fantasy football season. So I am going to start right here with the first player on my list, and that is going to be DeAndre Hopkins. Now, DeAndre Hopkins comes in and has 10 receptions, 100-plus receiving yards in his first game back. He had 14 targets. This is more targets than he saw in any game last year. So this is a guy who is going to be a target hog in this offense, like he very much should be, being one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. Now that there is no Marquise Brown, this guy is going to be fed the rock like crazy. I love his upside going forward, considering the fact that he's going to be the focal point of the offense. We know that this guy has the ability to single-handedly turn things around for the Cardinals, and therefore he is going to have pretty good touchdown upside as well. We know he's going to get targeted heavily within the red zone because of his awesome contested catch ability. So I love DeAndre Hopkins going forward. I think he's going to have a huge second half to the year. Next player on my list is going to be Travis Etienne. Now, this is a guy who is averaging 6.9 yards per touch, and this is very impressive. This is first in the NFL. This is a guy who now gets to head his backfield. There is no more James Robinson. He gets out of the way. So now that Travis Etienne is going to be the focal point of his offense, I love him to explode in the second half. We know that this guy is hyper efficient in both the running game and the passing game. So I'm very excited to see what he could do. I think he's going to be a top 5 running back in the second half of the season. Next player on my list is going to be George Kittle. Now, George Kittle has had 80-plus receiving yards in each of the past 2 games. He's seen 19 targets in the past 2 games. His target share has gone up significantly, and this is exactly what we wanted to see with George Kittle. In his first 3 games back, his target share was down. We wanted to see him kind of get freed as a pass catcher and start to run more routes and, get more targets, and he is now getting more targets, so this is a very good sign. I love him going forward. I think that he's going to explode in the second half and be a huge difference maker in fantasy because it's so hard to get points from tight ends this year, and it looks like George Kittle can be one of the better tight ends in the second half. Next player on my list is going to be George Pickens. This guy has averaged over 80 receiving yards a game ever since Kenny Pickett stepped in at quarterback. This guy is an alpha dog wide receiver with incredible contested catch abilities. He's averaging over 17 yards per target, so the average depth of target is ridiculously good. He has the opportunity to provide you great yardage totals on the season. I love him in the second half. He found the end zone this past week for the first time. I think that the Steelers offense actually has some sneaky upside because, they do have kind of a 3-headed monster wide receiver with, George Pickens, Chase Claypool, and Deontay Johnson. So I think that as long as Kenny Pickett can stay healthy and on the field, this offense has some sneaky upside, and I think that George Pickens is going to be far and away the lead receiver on this team as he is the most talented wide receiver in the wide receiver room. So look for him to have a huge second half. Next player on my list is going to be Jacoby Myers. Now, Jacoby Myers is averaging 2.86 yards per route run. Now, this is a very important statistic because if you look at the receivers every year that dominate this statistic, that dominate the yards per route run, if you look at the top 10 players every year that lead in that statistic, you're almost always going to find, some of the best wide receivers in all of fantasy. And Jacoby Myers is top 6 right now in his yards per route run. So this is a very good sign. He's making good things happen for his offense every time he runs a route, and it seems like no matter who plays quarterback, whether it be Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones, he can produce solid stat lines like every single week. So this dude is going to have his best fantasy season by far, and he's going to really explode in the second half of the season as he has really become the focal point of the pass catchers on this offense. So I love Jacoby Myers in the second half. Next player on my list is going to be CeeDee Lamb. Now, CeeDee Lamb has seen a 32% team target share. This is a very good sign. Now that Dak Prescott is coming back, I think that his ceiling is going to fly through the roof. We saw how good CeeDee Lamb was in the first half of last season when Dak Prescott was healthy and slinging the rock all over the field. We know that this guy has tremendous talent, tremendous upside. He's going to get to head this offense by far and away as far as the lead in team target share. I think that he is going to absolutely explode in the second half of the year due to being an offense that usually leads the NFL in both pace of play and points scored. So CeeDee Lamb is going to have a huge second half, and you should be very excited if you have him on your team. Next and final player on my list is going to be Tony Pollard. Guys, Tony Pollard is averaging 5.6 yards per carry. Okay, he is one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL. He was tied with Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor last year with 5.5 yards a carry, and they were tops in the NFL. I mean, look at the seasons that they had last year. So, when Tony Pollard gets his opportunities, he is incredibly efficient. He is one of the most talented running backs in this league. He's being held back right now because of running behind Ezekiel Elliott and being in a split backfield. But if Tony Pollard were to actually get the head of backfield one day, people will see that this is one of the 5 most talented running backs in the entire NFL. This guy is a top 5 running back in the entire NFL as far as pure talent. If he ever gets to head a backfield like he should, people are going to see that. And, guys, Tony Pollard is still going to be a breakout player in the second half because he's starting to get fed the ball more and more because Zeke is slowing down as he gets older. And Tony Pollard is the big play threat for this offense. So even though he doesn't really get running back one opportunity share, he still presents awesome flex value every single week because of his home run hitting abilities. I think he's going to have a huge second half of the season. All right, guys, I do appreciate you tuning into the video. These are my breakout players for the second half. I appreciate you tuning into the video, and I will catch you later.